Hold on, we're just having some technical difficulties here. There we go. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Just give us a minute here so we can get both streams up running. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Lunch Break with the Rabbi today. We are Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. We already started the month of Kislev. We are now today in the second day of the month of Kislev. And we are getting closer to Hanukkah and, of course, all the great celebrations that come along with the month of Kislev. However, as we began our discussion a few days ago, we were talking about this week's Torah reading. Last week, we started with the first shidduch that was mentioned in the Torah, the first marriage that's mentioned in the Torah. Today, we go on to see how Isaac and Rebekah are bringing up their children, the twins, Jacob and Esau. And in our class of fascinating facts, we began last week with the discussion of marriage and looking at the different fascinating facts concerning marriage. One of the things that we find in marriage, especially by marriage ceremony, is that there are so many different customs that are done. We're not going to touch upon all the customs, but just on the general concept and the ideas of marriage and how they are sometimes exemplified and brought about and the parallels we find when they're brought about in marriage. As we discussed in the past, the marriage is the final completion of the soul reaching by uniting with its partner. As we read in the beginning of the book of Genesis, therefore man should leave his household and identify and unify with somebody who they never met before in their life, or maybe they did, but they now become one union, one entity. The soul becomes a fusion as one. What is this fusion? Why is this? And how is this done? And how is this enchanted by the actual marriage ceremony? One of the things that we know that every single person gives when they get married is a ring. Why a ring? What is the ring symbolic of? And the ring symbolizes, and if you recall also by a Hasidic wedding or by any Jewish traditional wedding, we find that the kala, the bride, circles the groom as well, also symbolism of a ring. And in fact, there's a spiritual significance and symbolism to this concept of a ring. The ring identifies dedication to giving something over, which is not something which is limited. A circle does not have a beginning and an end. And over here, the husband and wife commit each other to giving completely, not a beginning and not an end, but giving themselves completely over to each other. But more than that, we know that there are different things that are channeled to one person to the next on a limited basic way, and they come in a direct channel. I give you something, there's something in return. And when we talk about something in the words of Kabbalah, it's called makif, from the essential point which hovers over, it circles everything, it engulfs everything from top to bottom. The symbolism of the ring is that the dedication and the commitment that the bride and groom give to each other as husband and wife, it's not just what I see, it's not just the talents and capabilities and what are attracted one to each other, but it includes and encompasses everything. And for that reason, the bride circles the groom, and the groom gives the bride the ring, saying we are giving to each other everything from the spiritual to the physical sphere, that we now become one entity. But what's even more fascinating is the real symbolism of the relationship that God has with the Jewish people is personified and identified by all the characters of what we find in a wedding. Judaism teaches us, and Kabbalah explains, that the first wedding that the first wedding that ever occurred was the marriage of God to the Jewish people. God being the groom, the Jewish people being the bride. And if we look in the details of what happened at the events of Sinai, we come to see every single one of these events occurred was one personification of this beautiful marriage and union and relationship that was created between God and the Jewish people, and truly a match made in heaven. What happened? God comes along to the Jewish people, meets them in the Sinai desert, and wants to marry them. He dates them, he courts them for 50 days, from when he meets them in the land of Egypt, all the way bringing them into the Sinai desert. They're now at the Sinai desert. The marriage ceremony is about to happen. Traditional Judaism tells us, and not the way people think, that all of a sudden people are just set up without any intent or desire to marry one another, and this is just the way it is. There's a shadchan, there's a broker who talks to the bride, speaks to the groom, speaks to the boy, speaks to the girl, and they get to acquaint with one another. This is the 50 days that God courted the Jewish people. But who was the shadchan? Who was the matchmaker between God and the Jewish people? Moses. Moses introduced God to the people and the people to God. And then finally, the wedding is ready to happen. What happens when the wedding happens? I'm sure you're well aware, where does the wedding usually take place? It's the choice of the bride of where the wedding should take place. What does God do? God comes down on Mount Sinai. He doesn't bring the Jewish people up to heaven, but he descends on Mount Sinai, giving the Jewish people the Torah, the marital contract of saying, yes, I now marry you. I now enter into this relationship. But let's take it a step further. By a traditional Jewish wedding, as you know, there are escorts that usually the parents of the bride and the groom bring the bride and groom as an entourage into the chuppah ceremony, into the wedding ceremony. Who is our entourage? If you recall by the story of Sinai, the thunder, the lightning, the all fancy event that happened at the time, those were the entourage of God and the Jewish people as they entered this holy relationship. And then, what happens at the end of the ceremony? The groom breaks the glass. Now, why does the groom break the glass? Many want to say, well, that the bride should get used to the fact that the groom's going to break some dishes along the way, or while they want to upset their anger, whatever it may be. Traditional Judaism teaches us that one of the reasons why the glass is broken, the common reason is that even at the greatest celebrations in life, we have to remember the mourning and destruction of the Holy Temple. But Kabbalah explains something different. Kabbalah tells us that one of the reasons of breaking the glass reminds us of how the first time the glass was broken by the first marriage, which was with God and the Jewish people. Moses broke the tablets. We too break the glass. But then the bride and groom are entertained. There's many different with the music and the celebration and all the dancing that follows the ceremony with the beautiful reception. What is that? What happens by usually people juggle fire up and down? So too, by when the Torah was given, that which came down eventually went up. God came down to Mount Sinai, went back up. Moses went up the mountain, but then came back down. Marriage is affected by a ring. The bride receives a ring from the groom. So too, God gave us the Torah, which is the ring. The same way a ring has no beginning and no end, and is a symbolism of a true relationship, so too the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Symbolically, the Torah is also like a ring. There's no beginning, no end. It has an infinite amount of knowledge, an infinite amount of wealth of wisdom that's in it. It is something that God gave from within himself. As we know when one studies Torah, the Torah is compared to taking God by his horn, so to speak. When we study the wisdom of Torah, we embrace from that relationship. We are hugging God. We are embracing God. That is the greatest extent that we can be intimate with God, is with the Torah. This is the culmination of the relationship, the marriage that God has engulfed with the Jewish people. But to take it even a step further. Jewish law tells us that after a person gets married, for the first 12 months, they spend together with their husband. Husband and wife spend together in an absolute dedication to one another. Even if he has business activities in place to travel, he usually must take leave, and he needs to take leave from his wife, and needs to be with permission. But the concept is that they should be 1 year alone together without any worries. So too, God stayed with the Jewish people, though they traveled, were in a rush to get to the land of Israel. But for 1 year, they stayed at Mount Sinai. Again, a similarity of husband and wife, God and the Jewish people entering into this beautiful union and relationship that stayed for eternity. This, the Torah tells us, is the absolute recreation that every time a husband and wife gets married, every time a bride and groom enter into that ceremony of marriage, they are recreating and again performing that beautiful ideal, that beautiful concept of husband and wife and the relationship that God has with the Jewish people. It's for that reason, if you look in Hebrew, the word for man is ish. The word for woman is isha. They both have two words, the two letters the same. Ish, fire. The only letter that's different is the man has the yud and the woman has the hey, which means God. When a man and woman realize that their relationship is godly, is something which is divine, then there's a man and a woman in a beautiful, wholesome relationship. But when man and woman remove God, God forbid, from their relationship, it becomes fire, all-consuming and destructive. Our hope and prayer is that in everything that we do, we should see God's blessing. How much more so in the relationship that we have as husband and wife, as bride and groom, in any relationship, to realize the divine relationship that's there that keeps it together. For else it's all just smoke and mirrors. It all goes up in fire, and what's it worth? We need to remember that in every relationship, whether it's child and parent, husband and wife, employer, or just life yourself, parent and child, there needs to be God in the relationship. Bring God in your relationship and make it eternal. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to talking with you again tomorrow at 1 p.m. as we continue to discuss this week's Torah reading, Jacob and Esau, two brothers. Can't they just get along? God bless you. Have a great day.